so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Buckchester. You know what I like to do on the show? I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. So scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want to get you fired up about the author, Sara Krusky, about her book, Theory of Death. Now you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee, or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Good morning, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Thank you so much for asking. So glad to have you on today. Now, before we talk about your book, Theory of Death, I'd love to introduce you to perhaps a few people out there that are unfamiliar with you or with your work. If you could, please, can you tell us a little bit about you? What makes you you? What makes you the person that you are today?
A lot of different things in my life have brought me to where I am today, but I've always been a writer. I can remember doing it as young as maybe 6 years old, putting stories together. It's always been a passion of mine, and I work really hard on it, and I just love doing it.
Now, with being an author, you say that it's something that you've always loved to do. Would you say that others knew that about you as well?
Not until recently. I've always been kind of a private person, I guess. But yeah, when I published my first book, I told my friends and family about it. They've all been pretty supportive. But before that, it was just something I did for myself, you know?
And I think that so many people would probably say the same thing about them, where people are shocked and surprised. It's like, I had no idea they could do, whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, you don't know everything about me, It's like, you know me, but my goodness, I'm not sharing everything with the general public. So yeah, I can definitely, I can understand that. I love it. Now, the title of your book, Theory of Death. Can you explain to us, how did you come about such a title? Many people say, the title came to me first. I wrote the book. Others will say the title came out of my writings. Some people have even told me, hey, I didn't figure out the title of the book until I was ready to almost send it to the publishers. So with that being said, how did you come about the title?
Yeah, so the title of my book, I figured it out about partway through writing it. It took me a long time. For the longest time, I had it labeled in my Google Drive as work in progress. So, it came to me about halfway through writing my book when I thought, I kind of based it around, what the main character was doing at the time. And then I was like, you know what, that's a good title. So I just kept it, and here we are.
Now, when you were in the process of writing the book, did you find any particular stage of it to be more taxing than you thought, or did you find any particular part to be perhaps even more rewarding than you thought? And I'm talking like the writing process, finding someone to do the cover, and then the actual sending it off to the publisher. At any stage, what were the pros and cons?
The editing sucked. I'm not the best at it, and I don't like doing it. It's my least favorite part of writing. But, you gotta do it. I think the best part for me is, seeing, these characters that I've made up, come to life, and seeing the story progress from just a small idea to, a whole thing that it's become. It's a great process.
And it's so funny that you say editing, because I think that for so many of the authors that I've had on, that's what they say too. The editing is slow, it's tedious, it's the part where you're just like, please let somebody else do this. I don't want to do this part. They already know that designing the cover is going to be someone else's job, unless you're an artist yourself. You know that that's going to be handled by someone else. You know that the publisher is going to be handled by someone else, but you're going, I just wanted to write it. I don't want to edit it as well. It's like, let someone else do it. So I definitely understand about that.
Yeah.
Was there any particular thing that motivated you or inspired you to say, now is the time that I need to get this book out? Like, did you have a prompting? This is the perfect time, as opposed to 6 months prior or a year prior to when you actually put the book out?
I don't think I ever really got the sense of like this is the perfect time, because I always want to like tweak things, make them better. I'm just that kind of writer. I'm always going back and changing things. It's really annoying. But after a while, I finished, I think, like my third draft or something. And I'm like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. I think it's time to put it out there. And here we are. But I still wish I could tweak some things around.
Well, I remember my grandmother used to tell me that one of the characteristics of a really great cook is knowing when to stop, and it's like, I think that's something true for people that are creative, be it that you're an author or you're a designer. You could put in one half a teaspoon of salt too much. You could put one embellish on a blouse and it goes from being beautiful to being totally tacky. So it's like knowing when to stop. I think you're right.
Yeah.
This is enough for this book. If you want more, there's a book too. But for this one, so that was very wise on your part. I love it. Now, how would you describe your book? There are so many genres of books out there, but how would you describe the genre of your book? And then can you tell us a little bit about it? Of course, I know you can't tell us all of it, but if you can give us a little.
Yeah, so I'd say that the genre of my book is more like a mystery drama kind of thing. It sounds corny when I put it that way, but yeah, so it's about these college students who are in school to become like detectives, while there's this like serial killer in their town going about, serial killing. And it's based in the 80s, and the cops in their town are pretty unreliable, so they take it into their own hands to figure out what's going on.
I love that you kind of took you back in time a little bit, even though I was certainly alive in the 80s. I love how you took you back. And it's like the older I get, the more I realize it's like, whoa, like the 80s was forever ago. But with that being said, though, because there's a certain, now that we are so many years away from that time period, there is kind of a bit of a nostalgia for that time. It did now, in comparison, seem like things were much simpler. I think the way that when we were alive in the 80s, we used to say, well, things were so simple in like the 40s. And now it's like things were so simple in the 80s in comparison. So I love that. I love that. I'm a person who takes your words and tries to make like a picture out of it, so I can like see what you're saying. And it's like, it's kind of like all of those movies where you get to go back in time and you see like the funky little crazy things we did and go, why? So I love it. I love it. Now,
yeah, I love time period writing.
Yeah, it's like everything has its pros and cons, right? Everything has its, I missed that. That was an awesome thing. And then you have those things that's like, why did we ever think that way? Why did we think that was cool? So I agree with you on that. Now, when you were writing, did you have a particular person or demographic in mind when you were writing? Did you want this to appeal to like our teens that are high school, or did you want this to be something that a little more adult, like after college? What was your thinking there?
I'd say it's more targeted towards like the young adult audience, especially because I was a young adult when I was still writing it. Still am. But yeah, it's definitely targeted towards that kind of demographic rather than the older crowd. I'd say it's yeah, I don't know.
No, I totally understand what you're saying, and we need to respect that. You know, it's a book that's for young folks. It's for our young adults, and it's something for them to enjoy. If you're over 40 and you want to pick up a copy of the book, do it definitely. But understand you can also share this book with your child, is what she's saying,
Yeah.
and I love that. It's something that everyone can enjoy. And I appreciate that because as I was also an avid young reader, I've always loved books, so I appreciate people writing books that are for our young folks as well. I agree with you there. Now, even though you wrote the book, some time ago, do you think that it is still relevant for today? And what I mean today is we're still kind of dealing with this COVID thing. We're probably going to be dealing with it for, some months to come until the world has gotten better. Do you think that your book is still appropriate for today?
Well, that's a good question. I started writing it when I was 14. That was about 4 years ago. So, the world has definitely changed a lot in that amount of time. I've tried to sort of change the book with it over my writing process, but one theme that stands out to me a lot is, the police aspect of it, of like them not being reliable or like good at their jobs. I'm not saying all cops suck. I'm just saying, like, that's definitely a theme that we've seen a lot in 2020 with, especially like police brutality and the Black Lives Matter movement. So I think, that theme is, pretty relevant today.
And thank you for that little qualifier there. And I think that most people, the good thing about my show is that my listeners know that we don't paint everyone with a broad brush. We know that there are great folks out there, but I mean, there's always a flip side of the coin. There's always that person who's gonna drop the ball.
Of course.
It's like, oh my goodness, but that doesn't, at least with my folks, it doesn't spoil the entire cake. It's just like that little slice was bad. So I totally understand what you mean, and thank you for that. Just the same, though, I love it. And when we look at the world, you are so right. So much has changed in the past 4 years that I don't think that we could have ever predicted that it would be this much change. If we look even at the past 6 months, there has been so much up and down that I don't think we ever would have thought that the year 2020 was going to be this.
Yeah, it's insane.
There are folks out there that remember when it was 1999 and we were all, or not, well, I didn't, but everyone was freaking out about 2000 is coming and it's going to be crazy. Well, I guess we picked the wrong year. 2020 is the year that it seems like everything has gotten a little funky, I tell you. Well, Sara, it is time for us to go to break, but before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and of course, how do we stay in contact with you?
Well, the title of my book is Theory of Death. You could get a copy online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, or my publisher's website, iUniverse.
Gotcha. Not a problem. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butt-Sester. You know what I like to do on the show: enlighten, inspire, and empower you. And I hope that that's what we will do today. My guest is Sara Krusky, and we're talking about her book, Theory of Death. And I'm really excited to have her on. Now, you guys know that I love children's book authors. Well, she's more of a young adult author. She has written something that our older teens and young adults can read, and that is pretty awesome too, because hey, they are our future, and we want them to be well read as well. Well, Sara, my next question for you is about your book being different. I interview a lot of authors, and let's admit it, we have folks out there that are always going to be saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. They're going to be the haters or whatever. So with that being said, because folks say, well, my book is different, and that person's going to go, everyone says their book is different. What makes you so special? So that's my question to you. What makes your book so special? What makes your book unique?
Well, like I said earlier, I started writing this book when I was 14. I worked on it for a good 3 or 4 years. And I learned a lot while I was in the writing process. But obviously I started with sort of an element of naivete. And I'd say the characters in my book have that same sort of element about them, whereas like they're college students trying to figure out a crime like on their own without the police's help. And I think the fact that I was like I was not super knowledgeable at the time of writing it, I think I brought that to their character as well. So it seems a little more real to me now.
And I think that so many times people don't understand how difficult it is to write a book in the first place, but secondly, how to make it a part of you, and you're sharing a part of your personality or a part of something that you've picked up along the way, and how to weave that into the personalities of the characters that's in your book. It really, writing really is an art form. And even in your innocence, you were able to put that innocence into your characters. That's beautiful. Because during the 80s, there was a bit of innocence still in the air about how to do things. And it was a crazy time. It was a fun time, but there was still that bit of innocence. So I think that's awesome that you incorporated that and didn't try to make it something that it wasn't. So that's definitely a plus. Now, for some of my authors, if they would like to read a portion of the book, I definitely open up the floor to do that. If you would like to do that, I'd love to leave that a little bit closer to the end of the interview, but is that something that you would like to do?
I don't know what part I would read. Without spoiling everything.
Well, I guess you can think about it, and towards the end, you can definitely let me know if you would like to share something. So my next question for you is about the highlights and the pros and the cons. Was there any particular highlight that you experienced when you published the book?
I was just stressed the whole time. Like, I was really stressed about it, especially with my family reading it. Because it's a pretty personal thing to have your family read a book that you wrote. But yeah. So I was mostly worried about that.
Now, when you were writing, did you find that you needed to kind of be away from everyone? Did you try to have like that alone time to write, or did you find that the world kind of just went on around you, and you found a way to kind of just tune all of that out?
Honestly, a little bit of both, because like I always have time set like in the day for me to write. I do it every day. I spend like hours doing it. It's a whole thing. But at the same time, I was in school while I was writing it. So I would be there in like 5 minutes before class starts on my phone, like typing away, working on a chapter, and then I'd go to class for an hour, and then I'd do it again.
I love how you had it all kind of mapped out there to make sure that it was a smooth transition between the two. I love it. I love it. Now, for so many authors, they write and they say, okay, that was amazing. I got my thoughts out. I shared it. The process wasn't, as bad as I thought it would be. It was horrible, but it wasn't as bad as it could be, or tough, or, I hated this particular part, but we got through it. And they wish to write them more, and the process will become a little easier. Others write and say, that's it, I'm done. I did what I wanted to do. My aspiration is not to become, a writer. I just wanted to write this book. Where do you fall in with your thoughts? Do you want to continue being a writer, or do you think that this is it for you?
Oh, it's definitely not it. No. No, it's just, like I said, this is something I've been doing my whole life. Something I will continue to do until I die, probably.
I love it. I love it. Now, the fact that you have written other books, and I understand that, and it's always different with each one. But when you finally held this particular book, your Theory of Death book, in your hands, so you've written, you've edited it, you have the cover, you sent it off to the publisher, and you're now holding it in your hands. How did that feel? Were you excited, or what was going through your head at that moment?
Well, it was a pretty surreal moment, if I'm being honest. Like, if somebody told me when I first started writing it that I would once be holding a physical copy of it, I'd probably just laugh. But yeah, yeah, no, it was really strange because it felt like I was looking at someone else's book. It was just like another book that I had, and I'm like, wait a minute, I did that. It was weird.
Yeah. No, I can definitely understand. I remember the first time that I held my first book, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I did this. I cannot believe, this is it, and you do. You have that moment where you're just like, wow, amazing. This is really, really happening. I think I shared on another show, that even when you write subsequent books, it's still exciting because that was a labor of love. All that time that you dedicated to writing, it's still a thank God for this moment. It's done and it's finished and it's out there. So I love that. I love that. Now, being that this is Faith Talk Radio, and we, openly talk about those things that help us along the way, and many times that happens to be our faith. So my question to you is that, and denomination doesn't matter, any of that stuff, but how did you find that being an author and working through to help create one of your dreams come true, that being an author, how do you think your faith played a part of that?
I don't know. I mean, this is always something I've wanted to do, and I feel like I can never stop working hard towards that goal, even though I've already published a book and I've done all that. I still want to work forward and keep going. And, it's just important to never stop working for me. So I don't really know about fate. It's more, aspiration.
Okay. Now, with someone out there who may be saying, I'm thinking about being an author. I think I want to step out, but I'm not really sure. I don't know what to do first, or I don't know what to do next. First might be, start writing. Okay, I'm writing, but I feel stuck. Do you have any advice for someone who's just in those beginning stages of writing their book?
Honestly, just keep going. Just keep pushing it. Keep your ideas flowing. A lot of, what I do very often is if I'm, bored or if I have time to kill, I just, try to create scenes in my head. And it helps me to get the book rolling a little bit. And just be dedicated to the plot and the people as though you're one of them,
I can understand that. Kind of put yourself in the scenario so that you can see what's going on enough. I love that. I love that. Now, I know that for so many authors, their feeling towards the book is, if my book can inspire one person or help one person or encourage one person, then I've done it. So my question to you is about the success of being a writer. That looks different to different people. We dress differently, we speak differently, we drive different cars, we live in different places. So, of course, success is going to look differently to different people. What does literary success, what does being an author and being successful look like to you?
Well, being a successful author to me isn't about publishing or the amount of pages you wrote or whatever. It's about like dedicating yourself to a project and completing it to your own satisfaction. So when you're happy with what your book has become, then you're successful, you know? And if you want to keep going, then keep going.
I have to agree with you on that. Now, last few questions for you, and that is the message or the overall theme that you have with your book. Now, so many of my writers, and especially when they're writing fiction, I'm not trying to, I wasn't portraying like a certain message. Like I wasn't trying to talk about hope necessarily. I just wanted to entertain someone and kind of take their mind off of the craziness of the world. So my theme was imagination, that type of thing. With your book, do you think that you had an overall message or a theme that you were trying to help your readers experience?
Yeah, as cliche as it sounds, I feel like the theme of my book is love, and not necessarily like romantic love, but also like friendship and families. Because it's a lot of characters that I write, not even necessarily in this book, but in general, don't have great relationships with their family, and from then on they form really like supportive relationships with nuclear families, and they find family wherever they are, just in their friends, at school or something. And I think that's really important, and it could help a person get through all the craziness that's going on around them.
Absolutely. And you're so right about that. With the push and the pulls that are on our families nowadays, what a traditional family looks like is starting to become strained. There used to be a time period where we thought it was mom, dad, and, 2 kids, a dog, and everyone sat at the table and ate dinner together, and life was, hunky dory. But now that's even with a mom, dad, 2 kids, a dog, and trying to eat together, it's still stressful because of our schedules, because of everything that's going on, and we have so much to do. It is sometimes hard for some people to make that bond with their family members, and especially when you go off to college, you do expand your circle and you make new friends. So you're definitely right about that. I love it. Well, Sara Krusky, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book, Theory of Death, with us, and just kind of giving, especially our young folks, a little nudge to keep going and to use this time to go on and write that book, because we do need to hear your voice. And you guys are a generation of change, and I appreciate all that you are doing. So if I could please ask you one last time to remind everyone, title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
So the title of my book is Theory of Death. You could buy it online at Barnes & Noble, Chapters Indigo, Amazon, or my publisher's website, iUniverse. And that last website is also where you can contact me if need be.
I love it. Thank you again, Sara, for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us as well. We hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you to be your best. As always, may you receive God's grace and mercy in your life, and may you remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone.